Well, there you go. I am Brian Wilson. Chad Benson is not in today. I don't want you to be disappointed. We're gonna fill in for Chad and do our very best all the way till 3 o'clock. Chad's going to be off today. Take a little Thanksgiving break, and he's going to be off Monday, and I'll be in for that. So I'll be here for a couple of shows. It's that time of year, quite frankly, where the full-time people, and I used to be one of them. Now I'm a part-time person, but the full-time people are, they got a lot of vacation time they got to work through. So I'll be on quite a bit between now and the new year. So hope that you will, when you hear me you'll just stop and hang out for a little bit. I want to get right in today to the District 7 congressional race between Matt Van Epps, the Republican, and Afton Bain, who will be the bane of our existence if she's elected. See what I did there? And where we are on that whole thing. Look, I mean, the way this district is sort of designed, Republicans should win. I mean, Republicans dominate everything except Davidson County. But, there's some things that have, in recent days, made us a little nervous about this particular case, this particular race. And we really did not have a lot of polling data on it. And I know. Before you go, take it or leave it. It doesn't matter. But if you are concerned about the race, and you're looking at this poll, it's understandable why. Came out this morning. This is new stuff. You haven't heard it yet. Came out this morning. Emerson College Polling, in association with thehill.com. They released a poll at 8:15 this morning that showed that Van Epps, the former commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services, at about 49%, and Bain at 47%. In other words, the Republican leads the Democrat by about 2 points there, if you believe the poll. That's after factoring in the undecideds. So, that's pretty tight, and that's concerning. And that's why I think you have seen in recent days Democrats crashing the boards on behalf of Afton Bain. They see an opportunity here. And here's my concern. I mean, I really am deeply concerned about this. Here's the real bottom line of my concern is that I think that the Democrats right now are very motivated in a way that I think Republicans perhaps are not. They are angry. They don't like what's going on. They don't like, I mean, if you're a real dyed-in-the-wool, red dog or yellow dog Democrat, then, you're probably not real happy with the way things are going in the Donald Trump world, in the Republican world. And you see this as an opportunity to strike back. And so Democrat voters are going to be highly motivated to get to the voting booth. Today, by the way, the last day to early vote. Last day. So looking at these polls and looking at just, what common sense tells you is that Democrats are motivated right now in a way that the Republicans are not. I'm a little nervous about this particular race. I really am. And I think that we need to be very, very careful. And we, on our side of the equation, need to make sure that we are casting our ballot if we are eligible to do so. I mean, some of the counties where this district race is in play: Decatur, Dixon, Hickman, Houston, Humphreys, Montgomery, Perry, Robertson, Stewart, Wayne, Williamson County. There's 6 candidates on the ballot, but really most of the attention is between the Republican and the Democrat, with, according to this poll today, Matt Van Epps, who is, by the way, a good candidate. He's a solid guy. I got the opportunity to moderate a debate between the Republican candidates, and, he went on after that debate to win. And I will tell you, I wouldn't say anything at the time because I don't feel like it's my job to get into the primary. I really don't. But when he won the primary, I felt I could go ahead and say what I really thought about that whole experience. And what I really thought about that whole experience was he was very good. I thought he won the debate, quite frankly. So I like him. I think he's good. I think he's solid. A lot of this nonsense that the Democrats are throwing at him is just that nonsense. So let's go through this poll in greater detail from thehill.com. Here we go. Now again, if you don't believe the polling data, then take all this with a grain of salt, but I think you need to at least be aware of it, okay? That's my job. Democrat Afton Bain, Republican Matt Van Epps are polling neck and neck in a Tennessee special election to replace former Representative Mark Green, according to a new poll. I gave you all the details there. Here's sort of the some of the stuff that's deep within it. When you look at beyond just the main number, what is the big issue? The economy. The economy rated as the most important issue among respondents at 38%. The other issue, which has been raised by the Bain campaign, is housing affordability, 15%, healthcare at 13%. So, and I think this is right. Spencer Kimball, executive director of Emerson College Polling, in his press release said the following: the special election in Tennessee's 7th district will come down to what groups are motivated to turn out on election day and who stays home. Now, this is conducted between the 22nd and the 24th. 600 likely voters and respondents who have already, and some of them who have already voted. So there you go. I think the Democrats traditionally vote early, Republicans vote on day of, and it's nip and tuck right now. So I think if we don't have a good day on election day or today, this thing, if these polls are accurate, it could be a very, very close race. Maybe it's not. I mean, there are those who think it's not, and there are those who have pointed out, and I think Dan Mandis pointed this out this morning when I talked to him about it. It does seem that in the last couple of days, some of the crazy stuff that she has been saying over the years has come out in a bigger way, and it probably has had an impact that may not have been picked up in the polls. And it's entirely the Tennessee Star is raising questions about, the poll mix. The number of Democrats and Republicans that were polled may not be a real true representation of the district as it actually is. For example, in the poll, they said 53% said that they had voted for Trump in the last election. But actually, in that particular area, 59% did. So they may be undercounting, they may be overcounting Democrats and undercounting Republicans. But there also is the very real possibility that Afton Bain, and some of the things that she said that have emerged in recent days will have an impact on these numbers that has not shown up in the polling because it was basically dropping about the time the poll was in the field. Afton Bain hates Nashville.
I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville, apparently, an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
She hates it. She hates the city that she wants to represent, the area she wants to represent. I mean, I know the district goes beyond Davidson County. Don't get me wrong. But I have to point out that, when you're traveling and somebody says, where are you from? I live in Watertown. If I'm talking to people locally, I say I live over in Watertown. But if I'm talking to people from another area, what do I say? I live in Nashville. I don't really live in Nashville, but that's just, that gives people a frame of reference, and that's what we say. Oh, I live in the Nashville area. I live in Nashville. Well, anyway, I think that when you represent an area, you ought to at least like the area that you represent and the people who live there.
I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville apparently an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
But she's a wackadoodle, man. I mean, this woman is bona fide nutso. I mean, really, honestly, she's out there. Way out. Beyond her political beliefs. She says weird things, in my opinion. Here is the latest one, where she talks about a recurring dream that she had. And this is troubling on many different levels.
I've had is standing up in a cafeteria full of women. I don't know why I was there or whatever, and saying, I don't want children, I want power, and just screaming it at the top of my lungs. And for someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying. And where I am now with seeing the consequences and the ramifications of women having kids.
So, first of all, she has dreams where she has, stands up in a cafeteria of women filled with women and says weird things. But then there's this little part of it where she starts talking about, what her mom told her.
For someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying.
Just stop and think about the psychological damage that is done when a mother turns to the child and says, I wish I hadn't had children. I mean, what does that tell you? That you were not wanted or that she regretted having a child? That's just weird that a mom would say that to her daughter. And it basically what's saying is, I regret that I had children. Don't do what I did when you're the child. I regret that I had you. It's nuts. Just absolutely nuts. So anyway, there we are. This race is going to be very interesting. As I said, early voting ends today. If you get the opportunity to drop by and cast your ballot, you need to make sure we do. We'll keep watching it very closely to see whether or not this turns out to be something that is going to be worthy of our time, and whether it's going to continue to look like it's going south. But it doesn't look, I think, there are reasons to be concerned. I think the reasons may be overblown. It's entirely possible that this poll is not as accurate as it could be because of the sample, because of when it was in the field and things have happened, and it's a very fluid situation. But I'm telling you, better safe than sorry. If you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, if you're an independent, you got to get out there and vote for Matt Van Epps, because I'm telling you, he's a pretty solid citizen, and she's a wackadoodle, in my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. I'm just one man, but man, when you listen to some of the stuff that's been said out there by her, it makes you wonder, who is this woman, and is she really up to the job of being our representative in Congress? We'll call it 20 minutes past the hour now at 12 o'clock.
Selling your home can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Get a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. There are no showings, no open houses, no stress. Work with the #1 real estate team in the U.S. and close with confidence. Go to markspain.com today.
Hey, this is Pastor Al, and join us on Super Talk 99.7, Sunday evenings from 7 to 8. We're going to look at the news from a biblical perspective.
The very last pending criminal case against President Trump has come to an end. And if your travel plans include the upper Midwest, you want to pack your heavy winter coat and your patience. You may be in for a challenge today. We'll have those stories coming up at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, that's Jay Harper in the newsroom. Ken Weaver taking some time off. He's going home to have a little... And Bill Kay is in the studio, pushing all the blinky buttons. Bill, good to be with you today.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, everything going well? You got big plans for the holiday?
I'm actually going over Chad's.
Oh, really? Chad's going to feed you, is he?
He is.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, tell him I said hey.
Will do.
So I want to talk in the last few minutes before we go to the news at the bottom of the hour about this big breaking news today that the case against Trump from the 2020 election that was brought by Fannie Willis. Take a load off, Fannie. Well, apparently she's been disqualified from the case some time ago, replaced by a person named Peter Skandalakis. He has now filed a motion with the Fulton County Superior Court informing it of his decision to abandon the prosecution of Mr. Trump and more than a dozen others, including former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Listen to this. According to CBS News, he wrote in a memo accompanying the notice that overt acts listed in the indictment that were taken by the president and the Republicans, quote, are not acts that I would consider sufficient to sustain a racketeering case. Skandalakis said that after reviewing the evidence, he concluded that a federal prosecution was more appropriate than one pursued by the state of Georgia, and said the strongest and most prosecutable case against those who allegedly sought to overturn the results of the 2020 election was the one being pursued by former special counsel Jack Smith. Now, if you remember, the president was charged with 4 federal counts stemming from an alleged effort to subvert the transfer of power after the 2020. It was always a BS. I'm sorry, it really was. So BS. That was so BS, that whole case. But now that Fannie is out of the way, cooler heads have prevailed and the case has been dropped. Good news for Trump and 18 associates indicted by a Fulton County grand jury in August of 2023 under Georgia's racketeering law and were accused of coordinating a scheme to thwart certification of the 2020 election results. Basically, this all, I think, mostly came down to Trump's speech on January 6th. And the Democrats are trying to say that he was trying to have them go down there and disrupt the counting of the votes, among other things. I think this was one of the main allegations in the lawsuit. But, I was there on January 6th, and that's not what I saw. That's not what I saw at all. I saw a great number of people who were, after hearing Trump speak on one end of Pennsylvania Avenue, decided to walk down. In fact, quite frankly, if you're suggesting that the things that Donald Trump said on one end of Pennsylvania Avenue caused what happened on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, I can blow that up in about 10 seconds because I was standing right there on the corner watching it happen. And the people who were causing the trouble were already way down the street before Trump ever opened his mouth. They were already there. So they didn't hear what Trump had to say. They didn't know what he was saying on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. So that was always, I thought, a very, very weak case. Here's NBC News. I went to ABC, CBS, and NBC News because this is breaking news, and they had the earliest accounts. The Georgia prosecutor who took over the 2020 election interference case after Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis was disqualified said in a statement Wednesday he's dropping the charges against President Donald Trump and his co-defendants. In my professional opinion, the citizens in Georgia are not well served by pursuing this case in full for another 5 to 10 years. He was ending the case to serve the interest of justice and to promote judicial finality. How about that? Pretty strong. The decision is not guided by a desire to advance agenda, but based on my beliefs and understanding of the law. Trump's defense lawyer Steve Sadow praised the decision in a statement, quote, "The political persecution of Donald Trump by a disqualified DA, Fannie Willis, is finally over. This case should never have been brought." And he's right about that. It should never have been brought. A fair and impartial prosecutor has put an end to this lawfare. I'm glad that that's over. I'm glad that that's done. Who knows what this other guy's going to do? But we'll see. In the meantime, Jack Smith may come out with something, but who knows? In my opinion, this was the right decision. Fannie Willis was pursuing a prosecution as a vendetta, and that is never the way our legal system is supposed to work. She just didn't like Donald Trump, and that's really what it all came down to. At 30 minutes past the hour, time for Jay Harper in the news.
It is 12:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you that Thanksgiving forecast here in just a few minutes. The last pending criminal case against President Trump has come to a close, with a judge in Fulton County, Georgia, granting the new prosecutor's motion to dismiss racketeering charges against Mr. Trump and the co-defendants. ABC's Stephen Portnoy has the latest.
With DA Fannie Willis's disqualification for her relationship with an attorney she hired, the case was taken over this month by a veteran Georgia prosecutor. Pete Skandalakis said in his motion to dismiss that it is not illegal to question or challenge election results. But he also said that some attorneys gave the president and the public advice that was, quote, flawed or unlawful. Ultimately, Skandalakis says he determined it would take many years to see the case through to its conclusion, and that, he says, wouldn't serve the citizens of Georgia.
Snowy, windy conditions today and over the Thanksgiving week could snarl many travel plans, especially in portions of the Midwest and up in the Great Lakes area. ABC's chief meteorologist Ginger Z says that some areas of the Midwest could experience high winds and blizzard conditions.
Blizzard doesn't mean just snow, it means wind. And so circulating around this low pressure system through Wisconsin into Michigan today, big time winds. And actually the winds without snow will be potentially impacting roads and the air from Chicago to Indianapolis, Detroit, Cleveland, and Columbus, where those advisories are in place.
Well, it's kind of windy here in the Nashville area, and it's nice and sunny, though, and we are expected to break records for the Thanksgiving travel this week.
AAA says a record 1.9 million Tennesseans are going at least 50 miles away from home this Thanksgiving. 1.8 million driving, 51,000 are flying. Peak congestion is expected today and Sunday, so plan for delays. Experts recommend traveling early in the morning or late at night to avoid the worst traffic. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And Ken's sitting in that traffic right now. That is the latest news. We've got weather on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It is 30, let's call it 37 minutes past the hour of 12 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Chad Benson, taking a day off. He's got to brine the turkey, and he's got to get everything ready. And, Bell says he's going over to have turkey with Chad Benson. Does Chad know about cornbread dressing is the question.
I don't know. I know the other day he was saying he didn't like, as he put it, butt stuffing.
Yeah, no.
So this is different, though, right?
See, stuffing is in the bird, dressing is outside the bird.
Gotcha.
And cornbread dressing is really the only dressing worth your time. Just saying. I've been an evangelist for cornbread dressing ever since I went to Washington, and I found out that people there don't know anything about cornbread dressing. And I was shocked, stunned, and amazed. And I brought in to the newsroom there. When I worked for Channel 5 in Washington. I brought in cornbread dressing. And I had many converts. And since then, I've decided I need to be an evangelist for cornbread dressing. Nothing I like better. So anyway, there's that. By the way, when you put the food on the table, it will cost you less this year than it did last year. Here's one example, one survey that, there's a lot of people who do this, but this particular survey said that the cost of a meal is about $55. It's 5% down from 2024, a 13.8% decrease from the record high price of $64 back in 2022. It's it means we've sort of worked our way through the avian flu. That's part of it. There are cheaper wheat prices, which means that helps to feed the animals. And they say, some falling demand. Encouraging to see some relief in the price of turkeys, as it is typically the most expensive part of the meal, said economist Faith Parham. Farmers are still working to rebuild turkey flocks that were devastated by avian influenza. Turkeys led the Thanksgiving reprieve. A 16-pound turkey, down 16% since last year to $21.50. So, it's not going to cost you as much to put that food on the table. Thank you, Donald Trump. We are blessed to live in a country that is capable of producing such abundant food supply, and for that we should be thankful. Despite modest declines in the cost of a Thanksgiving meal, food prices, he goes on to say, are a real problem for many people in America. Yeah, but I am glad to see the prices down, and I think that is end result of the things that Donald Trump has done. In fact, here's a little example of things that are going well with the Trump economy. Sales at U.S. retailers and restaurants increased modestly in September as resilient consumers moderated their spending after splurging over the summer. In other words, they spent over the summer, and as they head into, September, it slowed a little bit, but it's still above what it was year to year. Sales rose 0.2% in September from the previous month, the Commerce Department said Tuesday, and a report delayed more than a month because of the government shutdown. Sales jumped 0.6% in July and August, 1% in June. Numerous reports on inflation, employment, spending, and growth remain delayed. And, I wouldn't put a great deal of confidence in that number. Could be better, but it takes them a while to get caught up after the government has been closed down. Retail figures, which aren't adjusted for inflation, suggest Americans pulled back on spending in September, perhaps, but they're still spending more than they were. So there you go. MIT, meanwhile, has done a study that gives us maybe a little concern about the horizon, what's on the horizon with this artificial intelligence stuff that everybody's talking about. I mean, the artificial intelligence, I think, look, it's here to stay. It's going to be there. I think we would be wise to watch very closely what happens with AI, because I think AI can spin out of control. I will tell you that AI is good, and it has a lot of positive things about it, but it can also be wrong. Just incredibly wrong. But it can replace a lot of people who are already in the work market. Are you ready for this? The Massachusetts Institute of Technology on Wednesday, today, released a study that found that artificial intelligence can already replace about 12% of the U.S. labor market. I mean, for one, I'll give you a perfect example of this. We told our kids, story. The index simulates how 151 U.S. let's do that again. The index simulates how 151 million U.S. workers, 151 million U.S. workers interact across the country and how they are affected by AI and corresponding policy. So it's a forward look at how AI may reshape the labor market, not just in coastal tech, but in states all across the country. For lawmakers preparing billion-dollar reskilling and training investments, the index offers a detailed map of where disruption is forming down to the zip code. We're creating a digital twin for the U.S. labor market, says this is the people at MIT. And so they're able to get a good bead on what will happen when AI comes on board in a bigger way. It's not a prediction engine about exactly when or where jobs will be lost. It's meant to give a skills-centered snapshot of what today's AI systems can already do and give policymakers a structured way to explore what-if scenarios before they commit real money and real legislation. I think could be very helpful. Tennessee moved first because part of this is coming out of Tennessee, citing the Iceberg Index as its official AI workforce action plan. Utah leaders are preparing to release a similar report based on this computer modeling. North Carolina State Representative DeAndrea Salvador, who has worked closely with MIT on the project, said what drew her to the research is how it surfaces effects that traditional tools miss. But don't miss the headline here. The headline here is that AI is going to change the world as we know it. It's going to dramatically change the workplace. And many of the jobs that people within the sound of my voice have now could well be replaced over time by AI. So, this whole idea of, learn to code, I mean, you have to rethink what our kids are studying in school. I don't know, with most technology that comes along, I think what happens is that we are at first wary of it, and then it becomes more accepting, and we start to take that technology and apply it to our lives, apply it in our workplace, apply it in the things that we do every day with the computer. And then what we find is that over time, you know what? This is pretty interesting. This helps me out a lot. I've used AI on some stuff, and I've found it to be pretty good. The problem is you need a human with real good judgment to make sure that AI got it right. There's some things that, just the experiences I've had as a journalist and in the news business for many, many years, there's sort of little things that AI does now and then that send off alarm bells for me, and I've gone back and checked it. But most people do not have the background that I have in this regard, and that is, most people haven't spent their life focused on the news to the extent that I have. So I think I'm able to pick up on some of it, and it's there, and you got to know it. The problem is, what if you don't recognize that AI got it wrong? But one way or the other, it's going to have a big change in what happens out there in the workplace as we go forward and we try to decide what kind of technology, are we going to be able to replace with artificial intelligence? And where are the boundaries where we say we shouldn't use AI for this? I personally think, for example, I'm a little worried when the military starts talking about using AI to have planes that fly on their own or ships that cruise the ocean on their own. that have weaponry. You know, I'm not sure I want the human element still in there before the trigger is pulled, and I hope that never goes away. There has to be the human element injected into AI. AI presents you with options, and then the human makes the final call, is the way I would like to see it. I think that's the best way to go. One way or the other, I think we are in the next year, we will see tremendous advances in this AI arena. Now, since it's the holidays, and, you know, we're heading into Thanksgiving tomorrow, and then into the Christmas season, it's a little slow today, and I thought I wanted to do something coming up in the next hour. And I want to talk about this so that you understand what we're going to be doing, and you can choose to stick around if you want. I hope that you will. If you're not aware, there's and you know, Bill, you were saying that you have heard about it, but you don't know a lot about it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, there's a documentary out called Age of Disclosure. Now, as anybody used to listen to my old program in the evenings, you know that occasionally I like to revisit these issues that have to do with UAPs, you know, unidentified aerial phenomenon, what we used to call UFOs. You know, our military service people are seeing things, especially in the Navy, not so much the Air Force, interestingly enough, but in the Navy, and I'll tell you why that is later. But they see things that they can't explain. And we've actually had people who have, you know, even back during the Biden administration, confessing that there are things going on out there in the world that we can't explain. Here, let's go back to the Biden years. John Kirby, the podium of the White House.
The United States believe that there may be life outside of Earth.
What we believe is that there are unexplained aerial phenomena that have been cited and reported by pilots, Navy and Air Force, that these phenomena have, in some cases, had an impact on our training ranges, on our pilots' ability to fly, train, operate, and stay ready. That alone makes it a national security issue worth looking at. We don't know. We don't have the answers about what these phenomena are.
Yeah, we don't have the answers to what these phenomenon are. But we're going to spend the next hour, because this documentary cost you $20 to watch. Many people have not watched it. So I have taken some time here to go through the documentary and pull out a bunch of different clips that I think will blow your mind when you hear from 34 high-ranking government officials, from the Secretary of State all the way to a one-star admiral, talk about the things that they know, the things that they have seen. It's pretty mind-blowing. And we're going to spend a full hour going into that, and we'll be taking your calls on it coming up in the next hour. Right now, 50 minutes past the hour of 12 o'clock.
President Trump sending his special envoy to present a peace plan on Ukraine to the Russian president. And another unruly airline passenger story, this time in Atlanta. We'll have all that coming up at 1 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, Jay Harper, I really love what Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, has said about traveling.
Yeah,
we need to sort of up our game. We need to be polite to one another. We need to dress a little better when we go to the airport.
A little better. You know, and I'm seeing stories literally right now on the TVs in here in the studio about people pushing back on the dressing up comment. You know, I mean, I understand people wanting to be maybe a little more comfortable on some of these flights because flying is uncomfortable as it is.
It's an uncomfortable experience, especially when you're 6'4" and those in the tight seats.
I know. Yeah, I'm a big man like yourself, especially. But you know, I comment on that all the time when I fly. I see people that look like they just got through mowing the lawn.
Or it looks like they're in their jammies.
Yeah, or flip flops and just nasty T-shirts. It's like, come on.
And there's a video out there of a guy sitting in the window seat, so there's somebody next to him, and he's scraping the calluses off his bare feet during the flight.
Just disgusting stuff like that.
I mean, who thinks that's appropriate?
Anywhere, much less the close confines of an airline.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any real problems today at the airport. Everything going okay as far as we know?
Well, the upper Midwest is seeing some issues with weather. There's some snow up there, and it's kind of, Detroit and Minneapolis, those places, Milwaukee, they're seeing some travel issues. But aside from that, most of the country, from a weather standpoint, really shouldn't see any delays, I guess, unless your plane is maybe originating from in the upper Midwest.
Yeah, I think it's changed over the years. It used to be the day before Thanksgiving was a big travel day. People would try to catch a flight or get on the roads. But I think it's moved up a little bit. I think it's more like, I think Tuesday is considered now the big travel day, isn't it?
Yes. That's what AAA is saying, that more and more folks are getting away on their getaway day as turned into Tuesday. You're right.
Well, have you done any research on this documentary, The Age of Disclosure?
No, Brian. I must admit that's a new topic for me.
Well, listen, I think you're going to be fascinated by the next hour. I mean, even if you're a non-believer, and I'm not sure where I am, but the things that are said in this documentary by really smart people. I mean, these aren't folks who, some hillbilly with missing teeth that saw something. Right. These are like the Secretary of State, an admiral, two highly respected pilots, astrophysicists who worked on the UAP retrieval program, who are now coming forward.
Yeah,
it's
reputable people.
It's pretty amazing. 34 pretty high-ranking people have gone on record. And if you haven't heard anything about this, stay tuned for the next hour. And then after the first half hour, we'll open up the phones and take some of your calls if you have any questions about all this. It's all coming up after the news with Jay Harper. 1 o'clock now on Super Talk 99.7.
It is 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you that Thanksgiving Day forecast here in just a moment. President Trump says his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, will be traveling to Russia to present a peace plan on the war in Ukraine to present to the Russian President Putin. This after the U.S. and Ukraine ironed out a plan in Geneva this week. But Witkoff may be facing controversy. According to a report from Bloomberg, Witkoff was talking to Putin's top foreign aide about a peace plan that would favor the Russians. And according to the report, which has not been verified by ABC News, Witkoff allegedly coached the aide about how to appeal to President Trump on a peace plan. We've got more now from ABC's Patrick Reevell.
The Kremlin aide that was involved in these calls, Yuri Ushakov, has been speaking to Russian media and he appears to have implicitly confirmed that this call with Steve Witkoff did take place, as well as another call that was also leaked to Bloomberg between Ushakov and a top Kremlin negotiator, Kirill Dmitriev, who has been negotiating with Steve Witkoff and who was in Miami last month.
Just in time for Thanksgiving, an unruly passenger was detained on a flight that was taxiing out of Atlanta. Here's AB's Alex Stone on what went down.
We have a psychotic passenger.
KLM Flight 248 was taxiing to the runway in Atlanta on Tuesday, bound for Amsterdam, when police say a 32-year-old passenger thought he saw another passenger with a weapon and panicked, opening up the emergency exit door and deploying the emergency exit slide. The pilots heard talking to air traffic control from liveatc.net.
He opened our left door, so we got a flight deployment as well.
The passenger was detained by police, but they say it appears he was experiencing a mental health episode. He's charged with reckless conduct, interfering with security measures, and damaging property.
Wonder how he was dressed. Anyway, hey, early voting in the 7th Congressional District special election ends today. Election Day is this coming Tuesday. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he was on WTN's Matt Murphy show yesterday. He says it's key that Matt Van Epps win for Republicans to keep their slim majority.
There's no question on many key votes coming up over the next several months, Matt Van Epps will be the hero. I mean, he will be the deciding vote. There's no question about it. And it will make all the difference for the entire country.
Some polls are showing Van Epps leading Bain, Democrat Afton Bain, by 8 to 10 points, but other polling showing it much tighter. That's the latest news. We've got your weather forecast next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, it's 5 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock. Chad Benson off today. Brian Wilson in the chair all the way till 3 o'clock, where Matt Murphy takes over, as far as I know, at 3 o'clock. And bringing you a lot of news and information. But I want to stop this hour and do something different. It's a slow day. I mean, this is a day where, we're sort of easing into a holiday. A lot of people are sort of out of pocket. And Washington is starting to close down. So there's not a lot of things to talk about. But I wanted to take this hour, basically, and talk about something that I find incredibly interesting. And if it is true, if the things that I'm about to tell you turn out to be true, I think we all will acknowledge it's huge, huge news. And I'm talking about this new documentary that's out called Age of Disclosure. Now, here's the thing. It comes out, for those of us who've been following this issue for a long time, some of the stuff that is in this documentary, we've sort of heard it before. Some of the people who are talking are people who have talked before. But no one has ever in any comprehensive way taken all of this stuff and put it together in a compelling narrative that explains what really is going on out there. The truth is out there, and the truth is pretty eye-opening. Now, a lot of times when you hear people who tell UFO or UAP stories, it's sort of like some good old boy who was out hunting or somebody was in the swamps fishing and they got some kind of story to tell. It's none of that. These are high-ranking government officials and people who have actually worked in the UAP retrieval program. Yeah, when they crash, we try to retrieve them. More on that in a bit. I mean, these are real solid people. Here's just a few of the people. And now this goes for about 2 minutes. But this is sort of an outline of some of the high-level people that you are going to hear from, starting with our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
I spent 11 years in the U.S. Navy as a fighter pilot.
For 18 years, I flew fighters for the United States Navy.
I spent 20 years working in the U.S. intelligence community.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
I spent 25 years as a senior official with the CIA.
I retired from the Navy as a 1-star admiral after 32 years of service.
I worked on highly classified UAP programs for the government as a senior scientist.
I spent 32 years in and out of government in national security.
I worked 28 years as an astrophysicist on highly classified UAP programs for the United States government and for the defense industry.
I'm a professor in the Department of Pathology at Stanford University School of Medicine. And for the last 10 years or so, I've been working with the Department of Defense and people in the CIA on the UAP topic.
Now, some of these people I've seen before, some I have not. They've never spoken before. They've spoken maybe behind the scenes, but they have not spoken with their faces out front for everybody to see. And what I find interesting is the people who are not in this documentary. Now, I have some suspicions about some things that have been said by some people as not being accurate. People who are, I don't know, it just seem like it's way, 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 way out there. I mean, all this stuff is out there, but I mean, really out there. And what I love about this documentary is the people who I think are sort of on the bubble with credibility are not used in this documentary. These are people with inside knowledge that are coming forward now to talk about this issue and what they believe.
I've come to the conclusion that we are not only not alone in the universe, but we have been discovered by an intelligence from some other part of the universe.
There's evidence we are not alone.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species in the universe.
We're not alone in the universe.
I wouldn't be so arrogant to suggest there are no other forms of life out there.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
UAPs are real, they're here, and they're not human.
There are other intelligences that have highly advanced exotic craft interacting with the human population.
They are here. This is real. It's happening now.
Non-human intelligence exists. It's been interacting with humanity, and it's been doing so on this planet for a long time.
We are not the only intelligent life form in the universe. There's something here on the planet with us that is intelligent and more intelligent than us.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
I mean, it starts to get your attention. That last guy speaking is somebody who apparently did work on biologics, recovered bodies. For Stanford, he's a Stanford University professor. And he worked for, obviously, Stanford, but also for the defense industry, as many college professors do. They pick up second jobs. Well, he was brought in to look at these biologics, apparently. Here I mentioned Marco Rubio, but here's what I want this next clip I want you to understand. If you think of this in Republican and Democrat terms, you're sort of missing the point. This is one of those rare issues where Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill are gathering together to say, we know we're beginning to hear some stuff that's very concerning to us, and we don't think we're taking it seriously enough. And it starts with our current Secretary of State. Back at the time this interview was done, Marco Rubio was a senator from the state of Florida.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is. That alone, just that statement alone, deserves inquiry, deserves attention, deserves focus.
If you have objects in the sky that you cannot identify, that's a problem.
That's Kristen Gillibrand, a Democrat senator.
Because it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be any adversary.
Well, any unexplained phenomenon could pose a national security threat. That's the way you have to treat those things.
There's something violating our airspace. There's something fouling our ranges that even the people we've tasked in the executive branch to understand this cannot provide an explanation. So I would say, in addition to the national security implications, this has implications for basic trust and confidence in the American government.
We just simply don't know the origin of the phenomenon. And we're going to try to get to the bottom of it, because for national defense purposes, some of these have been in areas that we train. These have been in areas where we've got some of our best equipment, and yet our best equipment has not been able to tag these things. We've not been able to go in and catch them.
No matter what they are, they're invading our airspace, and we don't know exactly why they're doing it, what their intent is, and what their capabilities are.
This has been going on for a very, very long time. And it really all started back in 1947. Yes, I'm going to say it. Roswell was apparently real.
In ATIP, we learned that the UAP event at the U.S. Army Airfield in Roswell in 1947 did actually occur.
This is a guy named Lou Elizondo, who was in charge of an organization that looked into this matter at the Pentagon, and then resigned so he could come forward and start talking about the things that he didn't think our government was taking seriously.
Described to be a boot heel-shaped UAP that broke into two pieces on impact, and observers saw what looked like hieroglyphics or some type of writing on it.
You might describe them as runes or glyphs, hieroglyphs that were actually on the craft itself. And within that crash, non-human bodies were recovered.
4 non-human bodies were recovered from the UAP crash at Roswell.
The recovered material from the crash, including the bodies, were all sent up to Wright Field, which is now called Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's where the U.S. had their best reverse engineers.
Let me talk about that for a moment. 1947, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is where our military was trying to reverse engineer the things that they had recovered from the Germans in World War II. I mean, it sounds like the Germans, if you've done any research on this, were sort of beginning to pick up on some of this UAP technology and trying to do something with it. Some of the things that they were working on are just otherworldly. So they already had in place a group of scientists who would take the information from that was recovered from our troops when we beat the Germans and figure out, you know, what technology they had and could we replicate it. We were trying to steal the technology that we had recovered from the Germans. So when you find you've got a wreck, apparently of a UAP in Roswell, and you need people to try to look at this and see if it could be reverse engineered, you go with the people who are already in place, and that would have been at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
These UAP presented a technology of unfathomable power. It was imperative that the U.S. be able to reverse engineer this new technology before anybody else, or before anybody else even knew about it.
You can't tell your friends without telling your enemies.
They don't want to tell the American public about the threat because there's nothing they can do about it.
I think there are two reasons why we don't talk about it. Number one, if we tell the American people we have craft, we're reverse engineering them, we are, trying to exploit that technology, and we are not alone, you're also confirming for your adversaries in the world, the Russians and the Chinese, who are doing the same thing, that what you have. And that's at the highest level of secrecy has been surrounding this project since 47 or so.
It was only a couple months after Roswell that President Truman signed the National Security Act of 1947, which established both the Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency. That was the start point in which both the CIA and the Air Force began to take operational control of the UAP topic. But it wasn't until a couple years later when Truman signed the Central Intelligence Agency Act that really endorsed the CIA to be able to run secret intelligence operations outside the normal routine oversight channels. Basically, be able to run operations without anybody knowing.
Yeah, and so apparently it is the CIA and certain elements within the Air Force that were given this portfolio and have been investigating the matter ever since. It's interesting that most of the UAP reports we get today come from the Navy, not so much the Air Force, because they apparently have a process. And we'll get into some of the stuff that's, what happens when people report this stuff. It's pretty eye-opening. And in fact, let's start with this one. This is the most, I think, compelling clip from the entire documentary. It's a guy named Eric Davis. He's an astrophysicist. He's been checked out. He did work apparently for the highest levels and top secret programs for the U.S. government, and he claims some pretty amazing things that he was told by George H.W. Bush after he retired the presidency.
I had a few private conversations with former President George Herbert Walker Bush in 2003, in which he told me that when he became the CIA director in the Ford administration.
Remember, he was not only, vice president and president, he also served as the director of the CIA.
He was not briefed on the legacy UAP crash retrieval program, but he later found out about it, and he informed me that there were a number of crash retrievals that had taken place since the mid-1940s. And he also informed me of a UAP event that took place at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964.
Listen.
Where 3 UAPs approached the Air Force Base. One of them landed on the tarmac, and a non-human entity deboarded the craft that landed and interacted with uniformed Air Force and civilian CIA personnel. And when he asked for more details, he was told that he did not have a need to know.
He's the president of the United States, and he's being told he didn't have a need to know. He's director of the CIA and told he didn't have the clearance to get this information and no need to know the information. How can that possibly be? But apparently it is. Apparently what happens, if you sort of follow the stuff that's laid out in this documentary, is that all of this is handled by CIA, high-ranking intelligence officials within the Air Force, and defense contractors. And the way you keep it secret is you give all the recovered craft, the recovered biologics that apparently they say they have, to the defense contractors. Because you can do, queries of the government. You can say, I want to find out what's going on, and you can demand, and Congress can demand information from the government. But it's harder for them to demand that same level of information from defense contractors, and that's where they hide the really, really secret stuff. The defense contractors apparently have it. So this Holloman Air Force Base thing that George H.W. Bush tells us is only but one thing that is connected to the Bushes with this. And I'll get into another case that involves George W. Bush right after we take a break, 20 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock.
The very last pending criminal case against President Trump has come to a close, and murder charges now filed in the shooting death of a Latino music artist in Los Angeles. We'll have those stories and more coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right. Thank you, Jay Harper. We were talking about this documentary that's out there. If you say, where can I see this documentary? It's on Amazon Prime. The problem is it cost you $20 to download the film. I did it, so you don't have to. But I mean, if you're interested in doing it, you say, I don't know if I want to spend $20 on this. That's why I'm giving you some of the clips here today, so you can make a determination about it. A moment ago, we told you about 47 Roswell. That was real, apparently, they say. Eric Davis, a astrophysicist, talks about a conversation he had with George H.W. Bush, which outlined an incident that occurred at Holloman Air Force Base in '64, where they say a a UFO, a UAP landed, and that somebody got out of the aircraft and interacted with the base commander and a CIA official there. Okay. They say it happened. Here's another incident that occurred that involves a different Bush, George W. Bush.
During the George W. Bush administration, the president routinely went down to his ranch in Stevensville, Texas, and I see reporting of UAP activity over the ranch.
F-16s from a nearby Air Force base were alerted to intercept this object. People on the ground saw it.
So I go down and I start asking questions. Hey, what did you chase? I'm acting on behalf of the U.S. government, and we're trying to understand what you saw. And they looked me in the eyes and said, Jay, we cannot tell you what we saw because the OSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations, came in here, had us sign non-disclosure agreements. We did see something, we did scramble on something, but we can't talk to you about it.
Historically, every time a military member had a UAP encounter, it was very quickly swept under the rug and they were discouraged from talking about it.
They put a form down as a non-disclosure form.
He came storming across to me. He said, don't you ever say that again. You are never to speak of this.
And I made it very clear that it's something we shouldn't be talking about and just keep our mouth shut.
There was a culture of silence. I didn't talk to anybody about it, not my wife, not my colleagues, not people I knew. I just shut up.
There's ramifications if you were to divulge any of this information to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, they cover it up and they sweep it up because they're trying to protect, if you follow their logic, what they're trying to do is make sure that they're able to exploit this stuff ahead of the Russians or the Chinese, which are also trying to exploit this technology. By the way, when Bush, it's really strange that on a topic of such importance, some of our more interesting interviews with presidents on this matter come from late-night talk show host. Here is George W. Bush sitting down with Jimmy Kimmel.
Did you go through the secret files, the UFO documents? Now that you're out of office, you can do anything you want, right?
True, yeah. But I'm not telling you.
No, I'm not going there, is what he says. So what are these things and what can they do? Again, another clip from the documentary that outlines some of the amazing things that the 34 government officials, government and scientific community officials have said in this documentary that these craft can do.
Simply put, transmedium crafts, vehicles that have the capability to operate in space, air, and water, and seemingly defy all that humanity knows about physics, have been operating with complete impunity around the world since at least the 1940s. At ATIP, we had access to some of the most sensitive videos in the Department of Defense inventory. If you could be in my shoes and see what I've seen in folks like Jay Stratton, there would be zero shadow of a doubt that these things are real and they are not made by humans.
The things that I've seen, the clearest videos, the best evidence that we have that these are non-human intelligence remain classified.
The classified data that we had access to when we joined the program was indisputable.
There's 80 years of this data that the public isn't even aware of.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
I want to play that last part about it because that's the most astonishing thing.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
Now that's Jay Stratton, who it has been confirmed worked at a very high level on some of these programs within the government. Some of the stuff that he has seen is still classified and he can't talk about it. Some of the stuff has been declassified and is out there, and he can talk about it in generic terms. But what you hear him say is, yeah, we got videos. Everybody says, where's the really good video? They've got it, but it's classified and it has not been revealed. But he said if you could see it, like I have seen it, you would be astonished. And you have these other scientists who worked on the reverse engineering issues who say it's overwhelmingly solid evidence. There's just no doubt in their mind. I mean, they look at you straight in the eye in this documentary, and they don't blink. They say we have seen things you would not believe. So my question: How do you feel about all this? What do you think about some of the things we've played here? Maybe you've seen the documentary. Give me a call, 615-737-9986. And when we come back from the news, we'll take some of your calls and talk about it further. It's 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
It is now 1:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. That Thanksgiving Day forecast is coming up. The new prosecutor in Georgia has dismissed the election interference case against President Trump and others like Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani. Fani Willis, who initially brought forth the charges, she was removed from the case. And Pete Skandalakis, the executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, he said today the case would neither serve the citizens of Georgia nor fulfill his statutory obligations. We hear now from ABC's Aaron Katursky.
There were a handful of guilty pleas at the outset of this case. It appears those will stand, but others who were charged, Mark Meadows, for example, the former chief of staff to the president, they will no longer be charged.
A judge is continuing to investigate the charges that the Department of Homeland Security knowingly refused to follow his orders to stop deportation flights to El Salvador. We now hear from ABC's Armando Garcia.
DOJ in court filings essentially says that it was Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, who made the decision to continue removing hundreds of Venezuelan nationals to this notorious prison in El Salvador, despite the judge's order to turn those planes around. This is a very stunning development, a stunning case, one that's lasted for several months. Essentially, the judge is continuing his contempt inquiry and seeing why his orders were essentially rejected by the Trump administration.
Murder charges now being filed against 3 men accused of fatally shooting a Latino music artist in L.A. ABC's Alex Stone reports from Los Angeles.
22-year-old Maria De La Rosa was known when performing as simply De La Rosa. She was in a parked car in L.A.'s San Fernando Valley last Saturday with 2 other people when they were ambushed. Police say 3 suspects came up to the car, demanded money, and then fired into the car, killing De La Rosa and critically injuring the 2 others in the car. 2 of the 3 suspects have been arrested. Police are looking for the third. If convicted, all 3 would face life in prison without parole.
That's the latest news. Your Thanksgiving Day forecast is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Even presidents have often been operating on a need-to-know basis. That's certainly true from a historic standpoint. The rationale, the justification was, the president shouldn't know about these things because that way the president always has deniability. All they need is a nod in this direction or in that direction. But that begins to ramp out of control. Frankly, I don't even know a president would know who to ask. You could go to the director of the CIA, nowadays the director of national intelligence, and ask them. And even that person may not know because those people rotate. But the people 3 layers underneath them that are there for 30 years, to them, it's like I've seen these people come and go. I have no obligation to tell them it exists. It just never percolates up.
A lot of people have this assumption that the director of CIA is read onto everything and knows everything. The director of CIA is a political appointee. Quite frankly, they're temporary help. Whereas the director of science and technology at CIA, this is a career intelligence professional. That's where you're going to put the program.
It is a program that apparently that is so secret that even presidents have been told they don't have a need to know. This is all from this big documentary that came out called The Age of Disclosure, which reveals, among other things, that, well, they make the statement bold-faced right out there. We are not alone. There are people visiting, or there are beings visiting this planet on a regular basis, and we have seen the evidence of it, and it's been kept from you. Now, look, I understand this is wild stuff. So where are you on it? 615-737-9986. Maybe you've seen the documentary. You have some thoughts about it. Maybe you have some questions. Get on the line right now, 615-737-9986. We'll return to regular fare in the next hour, but let's have let's sort of do a deep dive on this. We'll start with Charlie in Columbia. Charlie, you're on with Brian on the drive. What's your thought?
Yes, Mr. Brand. I am to be 80 years old. I've been doing this ever since I was a kid. I've always believed from the bottom of my heart that there was things on this planet before. And I have discovered some things that is unbelievable in fossils and rocks. And as you and I speak at this time, I am looking at a few tiny bodies. One of them is about 2 or 3 inches long, and I'm in the process of trying to get with some analyzers. And I've been told to go to Vanderbilt. I've been told to go to Knoxville, but I've been doing this for so long that I'm not naive to it. I think I'm just more professional with it than anybody.
Have you seen the documentary, Charlie?
No, sir, I have not. I have not seen anything. I have these things. I have the things people call UFO. I have some as you and I speak right now.
Yeah, you know, I'm rather agnostic about the whole thing, Charlie, because you know, I've never seen anything that I couldn't explain. But even Ken Weaver, our own Ken Weaver, claims to have seen things he can't explain. Thank you for the call, Charlie. I greatly appreciate it. Let's move through some of these other calls. 615-737-9986. Do you have any thoughts about this? Ron in Manchester, you're up next on the Chad Benson Show.
Oh, are you ready, Brian?
Say again?
Are you ready to hear this?
Yeah, hit me with it, baby.
Okay, listen, I am 70-year-old, and when I was a young man, at about 18, there was a documentary, it's called Alien Autopsy, and you could and I actually seen the aliens that crashed in Roswell, and people tried to dismiss it after it came out. I don't know if you can still get it, and said that it was Hollywood, and Spielberg said in the 40s, they had no kind of technology to be able to do this. So I actually seen the alien. It was actually a female. Her private area looked like a female. Of course, they have no hair.
You're talking about the very famous alien autopsy video?
Yes.
Yeah. See, here's the problem, Ron, and let me just stop you for a minute if I could.
Okay.
Thank you for the call. Here's where we are on this. There are people out there who have thrown out a bunch of stuff that's garbage. Now, I don't know if this is garbage or not, but I know it was widely discredited at the time. But it's hard to know what's real and what's not real because that's part of the plan. You know, the way that they keep people, sort of poo-pooing this whole idea is that they will attack anybody who comes out, and they throw out disinformation all the time. That's part of it. So it's really hard to know what's real and what's not. What I love about this documentary is, these are very credible people. I mean, when you see these people on camera and you see them look you straight in the eye through the television camera, they're believable. And they're not wild, crazy folks. They are very serious individuals who are really concerned that we need to be doing better on this issue. Bill in Nashville, you're up next on the Chad Benson Show. Hey, Bill, what do you think?
Well, hello, Brian. I love listening to your shows. I don't have any doubt that they're out there. I haven't seen the documentary, but whenever I hear a discussion like this, I'm reminded of what I think is a pretty funny story. When I was younger, my brothers and sisters and I were sitting around the dining room table talking about aliens, whether they were there, what would happen if they came here, would you want to meet them, all that sort of stuff. My mother was listening to us. My mother went to Purdue University and Johns Hopkins. She's an intelligent person. And she listened to us, and after we talked for a while, she just turned to us and she said, I'll tell you what, any civilization out there that is intelligent and advanced enough to get from where they are to where we are and back again is also intelligent enough to know that we're really not worth the trip.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is that. There is that, and it's a apparently the one soundbite that sort of jumped out at me was from this guy who was the medical guy from Stanford.
Yeah,
and when he says I saw them, they are here, they are more intelligent than we are.
Yeah.
And you got to know, what in the world has this person seen that he can't quite come all the way and talk about? Really quite impressive. All right. Thank you for that call, Bill. Appreciate it. Let's go to Gary over in Springfield. Hey, Gary, you're up with Brian on the Chad Benson Show.
Well, thank you, Brian, for having me. Listen, I sent to the radio station online, and I sent, I think, to the super texter line, the letter that I sent to Senator Burchett, who's been gathering.
Tim Burchett, right? It's Congressman Burchett, right?
Congressman Burchett, excuse me, veterans who've had experiences, and I had it very detailed. I did it in 2023, and it's gone into the records, and I got to talk to a retired admiral who has been part of the pulling the documentary information together. But it happened in spring of 1975. I was on board a Marine CH-53. I was the crew chief. I was a sergeant, and we were flying to Patrick Air Force Base from New River Air Station, and it was a beautiful night, a moonlit night over a swampy area in Florida. Mm-hmm. And the pilot, now two were killed later, the lieutenant co-pilot and my first mechanic helicopter accident, but so there's just two of us left, I believe, if the pilot still is. Well,
so you saw something that night.
It was huge as a battleship. I was sitting there looking at the swamp. The door on the left side's open in crew chief's seat. I hear him cuss. He never cussed. I jumped into the observer seat because the first thing I have to do is look at the instrument panel. Do we have a red light on something, which is bad news? You don't want to go down in a swamp. I looked through the windshield of that, big Marine CH-53, and there was a thing in front of us at 12 o'clock as big as a battleship.
Yeah, and so what color was it?
It was orange with a white base to it, and it just stood there. He did what's called IFF, identification friend or foe. It wouldn't answer. Got on the radio to Patrick Air Force Base. They picked it up on radar. We were about 100 miles out. He asked for a course correction because we didn't want to run into it. And the amazing thing is, and my first mechanic was over my left shoulder. It was like, I'm going to be honest with you, with four Marines kind of like in a panic, frozen, because there's nothing we could do about it. So
let me ask you this now. Did you report this beyond having conversations with the control tower?
Yes, and the air traffic control and TACAN, they eventually confirmed that something was out there, because the thing took off in a zigzag pattern. I mean, unbelievable speed, going out and then straight up and out in outer space.
Gary, I believe you. Did anybody ever come to you and tell you not to talk about it?
Well, that's the odd thing. So we land, and I had some damage to a couple of pockets in one of the rotor blades. That we don't know how that happened, but we land. Me and my first mechanic do a quick post flight, and we go into flight ops, and they were filing a UFO report to the Air Force. The Marine pilots were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was standing right there. Well, they're going to go to BOQ. We're going to go to the enlisted overnight, because it's a run overnight, and then next day, we got permission to fly back with 2 busted up pockets, because it was within NATOP's safety. And but anyways, nothing was said until we're flying back at state time, and the pilots had already talked to New River by phone the next morning, and we were told basically, okay, we had this experience, and there's no need to talk about it.
Don't talk about it anymore. See, that's apparently what happens in these cases. Somebody reaches out and said, yeah, you had it. Now forget that you had it.
And no explanation for the damage to the 2 pockets on the rotor blade. None.
Can you? I would really be interested, Gary, if what you thought if you ever get the chance to see this documentary, because I think it is replete with stories just like yours. Now, I believe you. I believe you saw something.
It was as real as real. I mean, the thing was if you ever been down to Mobile, Alabama, they've got that Battleship Park.
Yeah, the Battleship Alabama, right.
Right. It was big like that, maybe even bigger. And it was almost a flat looking kind of bell-shaped thing. Orange on the body and white underneath, bright. And it just showed up.
How bizarre. Well, that's a compelling story, Gary. Absolutely. Here's the thing I want to leave everybody with in this conversation is our hour that I wanted to commit to. This is about to wind down. Here's what you need to know. During the administration of George W. Bush, they actually convened meetings to decide whether or not they should reveal this to the American people. And W decided not to ultimately, that they were not going to reveal it, according to the documentary. Donald Trump had the same conversations, apparently, with some people on his staff in the first administration, and according to the director of this film, is revisiting the matter in his second term to decide whether or not it's something that they want to confirm for the American people. So we may well be in the age of disclosure. 51 past the hour.
Even a high-level Trump administration official's family is not immune to ICE raids. We'll have that story. And the trust for country music icon Johnny Cash is suing Coca-Cola. We'll tell you what that's about as well. It's all happening at 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Jay Harper, in for Ken Weaver in the newsroom. We got Bell K in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons. So I'm just curious, are you guys were able to listen to any of that? What did you think?
I think that I haven't changed my mind, and I doubt they're anything real. You don't think they're not
real?
aliens? They're real, but I don't think they're aliens.
Yeah, what do you think they are?
I think it's our technology and other countries' technology, and there could be some natural phenomenon that we're unaware of.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I mean, one of the things that's hard to know is how much of this is real. And, there's a bunch of stuff out there that we, pretty much over the years has been fairly well discredited. And it's hard to know what's real and what's not. That's part
Well, it's
of
like
problem.
the alien autopsy video the guy was talking about.
Yeah.
That was discredited.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, within a couple of years of it coming out, the guy that made it came out and said, it's fake.
Yeah, it was all BS.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's fascinating to me, and, it's one of the great issues of our day. What are these things? I mean, clearly, I believe the pilots that say they've seen things. I believe the guy that called in just a little while ago, Gary. I believe he saw something. So, I mean, something goes on there. Who knows? And some of the stuff that's out there that keeps getting seen, like these triangle-shaped aircraft, I have a suspicion that's ours. I think we have been able to do some pretty amazing things that we keep secret. And I think the Russians have done the same, and I think the Chinese have done the same. So the question is, how far along are we? And what kind of technology do we truly have? I know that when they start to sell F-35s to anyone, I always wonder, is it because they know that we have something that the rest of the world doesn't know about, that we don't, that's better than the F-35? I wonder. Well, anyway, it's a fascinating topic. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking about the boring tunnel. There's nothing boring about the boring tunnel, and the tunneling machine has arrived in Nashville. And there's some other things that Elon's talking about with regard to that. And, we'll do a little Thanksgiving trip to the White House where they pardoned the turkeys yesterday. It's all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Chad Benson.
It is 2 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you that Thanksgiving forecast here in just a little bit. A relative of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has been caught up in the Homeland Security Department's immigration crackdown. Here's ABC's Armando Garcia to explain.
This is her nephew's mother. DHS has forcefully described her as a criminal illegal alien, saying that she had a previous arrest for battery and overstayed a visa, presumably when she came to the United States when she was a child. Her lawyer is pushing back on some of these claims, saying that she had absolutely no criminal record, certainly no criminal record that would have prevented her from getting deferred action for childhood arrival status. And he's also saying that this is somebody who is now being held in Louisiana, thousands of miles away from home. They plan to challenge her arrest in federal court.
We now move out west, where all operations are suspended at a federal prison in Southern California because of immediate concerns over the building's safety. Alex Stone, he's in L.A.
Federal Correctional Institution Terminal Island is a low-security prison that houses close to 1,000 inmates, including cryptocurrency fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried and disgraced celebrity lawyer Michael Avenatti. The Federal Bureau of Prisons says all operations at the prison are suspended, but it's unclear where the inmates will be held or where they're going to be transferred to. Ceilings are reportedly deteriorating, causing chunks of concrete to fall and putting employees and the prison's heating system at risk. The head of the Bureau of Prisons saying he's not going to put lives in danger.
The trust for music icon Johnny Cash has filed a lawsuit against the Coca-Cola Company, accusing the soda giant of pirating his distinctive voice for an ad campaign. The lawsuit claims that Coke used a pirated version of his voice in a nationwide advertising campaign to enrich itself. That is a quote from the lawsuit. In the suit, Cash's trust evokes the recently passed Elvis Act that protects artists from unauthorized commercial use of their voice and artificial intelligence. The ad in question was part of a Coca-Cola campaign for this year's college football season. The ad depicts fans drinking Coke as well as Coke Zero, synced to a recording of a man singing that sounds, quote, remarkably like the voice of Johnny Cash. That is, according to the lawsuit. Here is at least part of the ad in question. What do you think?
I stand alone with fire inside. This heart's a drum.
Well, it's going to be up to a jury to determine damages if they win that lawsuit. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It is 6 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, and about 20 minutes or so ago, in the nation's capital, we have some breaking news to talk about. Apparently, there has been a shooting near the White House at 17th and I Street Northwest. This would be near the Farragut West subway stop, if you know the D.C. area, and only just a few blocks from the White House, actually, in downtown D.C. Northwest. And 2 National Guardsmen apparently have been involved in an incident. It may have been a shooting. Here's what I know. CBS News reporting in the last few moments. Police in Washington, D.C. responding to the scene of a shooting a few blocks from the White House, 17th and I Street Northwest. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said 2 members of the National Guard were shot. Noem asked for prayers for the Guardsmen, but did not share any information about their status. She said the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, was working with local law enforcement to gather more information. Metro Police Department, the local police department there, posted a critical incident alert at 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time. That would have been about 1:42 our time, so, about 20, 25 minutes ago, saying, please avoid the area, updates to come. Video from the scene showed 2 men in uniform being treated. So that's all we know at the time. That, of course, the National Guard is in D.C. At the president's behest. The president, by the way, not in D.C. right now. I think he's down in Florida. So, there's no impact to the White House, but this is a few blocks away, and it does involve the National Guardsmen who are there to help secure and make D.C. a safer place at the president's behest with, by the way, the support of now retiring Mayor Muriel Bowser. So that we'll try to stay on top of that story and keep you up to date on everything that we know. But to recap very quickly, about, I'm saying 25 minutes or so ago, there was an incident at 17th and I, Northwest in D.C., just a few blocks away from the White House. 2 National Guardsmen apparently are involved in some kind of shooting incident, and 2 National Guardsmen apparently being treated now for their injuries. This, according to the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, speaking to CBS News and others. I'm looking now on the Fox News channel, and they have what appears to be a drone shot. And this is, you can see that this is very close to the White House. It is just north of the White House. And again, pictures now just coming up the technology that TV stations have these days is really amazing. A live shot can basically put up off a cell phone. And they're walking toward the area in Northwest D.C., 17th and I. And there are a lot of police cars, a lot of yellow tape. An investigation underway, and we don't know anything more about it except that apparently 2 National Guardsmen who were there to secure the city and make it safe have been involved in some kind of shooting. It seems a shooting incident, and are undergoing treatment for their injuries. And that's really about all we know right now. We'll come back to it as more information is made available. I want to talk a little bit about the tunneling machine. Elon Musk's and his tunneling machine, the Boring Company. They want to build a tunnel between the airport and downtown, but now there's talk about a lot more. Here's the big news. According to Fox 17 reporter Johnny Manfrey, the doggone boring machine, the one that actually digs the tunnel, has arrived in Nashville.
Boring machine showed up oversized load. The truck driver says it came all the way from Austin, which makes sense with the Boring Company and Elon having a lot of things based over there. We are here on Rosa Parks, just below the state capitol up there. Now, this boring machine, it's different than the one they used in Vegas for the Vegas loop because of the hard rock underneath the surface here. It's a lot different. We were literally reporting on a different story involving the Music City Loop this morning. Head to fox17.com, search Tesla Tunnel, Boring Company, Music City Loop, whatever you think. Let us know what you think in the comments as well. I'm Johnny Maffey. Thanks for watching.
There you go, from Fox 17. Thank you for that. So the boring machine has arrived, and the question is, can they, what are they going to do? Now, the other start of this story that is sort of interesting is that we are hearing now from the the Boring Company and Elon Musk, that they want to maybe do some bigger things. One of the things that's been talked about is expanding this tunnel that will run from the airport to downtown to include a stop at the new stadium. The governor spoke about this yesterday. The governor is all about this. There's also talk, this is pretty amazing stuff, there's talk about building a tunnel all the way between Nashville and Knoxville. Nashville and Knoxville, and according to the folks at the Boring Company, they say that they would use pods and they would travel 600 miles an hour, and that you could do the trip to Knoxville in just a few minutes. Now, that would be remarkable. Here's what I would say about it, and that is that we don't know much about what kind of capability they truly have in this granite. The machine got here. The machine is designed to burrow into the granite, but they haven't really started digging yet, and it's a lot of rock. The other thing that I would say is many times when you hear Elon Musk or Elon's companies talk about things, it's aspirational. In other words, this is what we would like to do. We're just not really sure whether we can do it. They have a pretty good reputation of figuring things out. Maybe they'll be able to figure it out, but this is sort of what they're saying. In concept, it could get you there to Knoxville pretty quickly. You know, you go out to a University of Tennessee game, you could leave here half an hour before the thing started and be there. I mean, that would be remarkable, wouldn't it? So we'll see what happens there in that regard. But one way or the other, the boring machine is here, and they are beginning to do the digging. I think the first test will be this tunnel that runs between the airport and downtown has to go through some pretty serious rock. They don't seem to think it's going to be a problem. They have reconfigured the machine to handle that harder material that they'll be experiencing, stuff they didn't have to experience, stuff they never ran into. The bad news is it'll be hard to cut through. The good news is once you cut through it, you have a very solid tunnel. It's going to be there for a while. So, I mean, unbelievable stuff. And again, the new development is that machine has arrived and will now start digging between the airport and downtown, down near the state capitol where they have the other end. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. I know that the city of Nashville, the city fathers and the council, they have some real concerns about this, and they're a little miffed that they haven't been just had any conversations with about this. They've sort of been imposed upon them by the state. The state has the right-of-ways, and the state has a place near the Capitol where they can end the tunnel. And so, the question is, will the city be on board? But it seems to me like it'd be a pretty big deal. If you could have a tunnel that would take traffic from the airport to downtown, and you don't have to deal with that traffic, everybody wins. The people who are coming to town, they win. The people who get less traffic on I-40 near the airport, they win. We all win if it can work. The question is, can it work? So now we'll have to wait and see. It's 15 minutes now past the hour of 2 o'clock, and I want to just once again recap this breaking news story out of the nation's capital. And I'm trying to get more information on it, but I mean, it literally has just happened so quickly that we don't have a lot of information on it. But 2 National Guardsmen who were there to town to be involved in in making the town safe for crime, apparently have been shot about a block north of the White House. Let's see, Here's ABC News. They don't have much. The National Guardsmen have been shot in downtown near the White House, according to multiple officials. Metro Police Department says it's on the scene of a shooting, 17th and I Street. The scene is secured. 1 suspect is in custody, so there you go. That's good, the Metropolitan Police Department said. Looking at CNN, they have the story there as well. Several people shot in Washington, they say. According to the DHS. Downtown Washington early Wednesday, according to a source familiar with the early reports, Nothing new there. Hang on a second. Let me see what Fox News has. Yeah. Law enforcement responding after 2 National Guardsmen shot near the White House. Authorities are responding to a confirmed shooting near downtown Washington, close to the Farragut Metro Station, within walking distance of the White House on Wednesday. 2 sources confirmed to Fox News that 2 National Guard members were shot about a mile from the White House, but their conditions are not known. Please join me, says Kristi Noem in her ex posting, in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. DHS is working with local law enforcement to gather more information. So that is what is breaking right now in the nation's capital. Looking at some of the other reporting on this to see if I can get a little bit more information. White House is aware. The president has been briefed, according to Caroline Leavitt. He is in Mar-a-Lago for the Thanksgiving holiday. J.D. Vance, by the way, interesting. I saw him just a few moments ago on TV. He's here. He's in our neighborhood. He's in at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, feeding the troops before Thanksgiving. And 2 National Guardsmen wounded in a shooting in downtown. 1 suspect is in custody. 17th and I Northwest. I mean, literally, that's just a stone's throw from the White House. So police are there in a big way. Pictures are coming in. More information will be available to us very shortly. Let me break a little early if I could, because we can maybe get a little information while we're doing our spots here, Belkay. So We'll go to commercial break. I'll try to bring you the latest information, new information as it becomes available right after the spot break. It's 18 past the hour.
Of course, Brian's on top of it as well, but we will also have the latest of what we know on a shooting in downtown D.C., reportedly involving National Guardsmen. We're also hearing about the U.S. Naval Academy on lockdown and some sort of active threat reported there. We'll stay on top of these stories. It's coming up at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Chad Benson. He will, of course, be monitoring everything that there is about this breaking news development out of the nation's capital, 17th and I Northwest, just a block or so from the White House, about a half a mile, they say. There was an incident involving 2 National Guardsmen who apparently were involved in a shooting, and one suspect. Here's what I'm getting, the latest information, and it's coming. And this is, when things like this happen, it takes a little while to sort of put all your facts together and to double check them. And it's always a very fluid situation. But here's what we do know. A suspect is in custody in the shooting of National Guard members in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, says the Associated Press. 2 Guard soldiers shot near the White House, and their conditions aren't immediately known, according to 2 law enforcement officials not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and who spoke to AP on condition of anonymity. Emergency vehicles seen responding to the area. At least 1 helicopter landed on the National Mall. That would be nearby. The Joint D.C. Task Force confirmed they are responding to an incident in the vicinity of the White House in the movements after reports of a shooting. However, the spokesperson wouldn't immediately confirm or deny if any National Guard members have been shot. Others have. The Metropolitan Police Department said they are responding to a shooting, but did not provide any more information. Spokesperson for Mayor Muriel Bowser said that local leaders were actively monitoring the situation. The mayor was in the city when the incident occurred, but Donald Trump is at Mar-a-Lago, and the vice president is in Fort Campbell, Kentucky at the moment, feeding the troops before Thanksgiving. Hundreds of National Guard members from the district and several states have been patrolling, as you know, the nation's capital after President Donald Trump in August issued an emergency order in the Capitol, federalizing the local police force and sending in the Guard from 8 states and the District of Columbia. That all from the Associated Press, putting together a little bit of information, putting together what we call string, little facts that we're learning as the story unravels. A suspect from, let's see, that's the AP. Hang on. Yeah, here's another one. This one from NewYorkPost.com. 2 National Guard troops shot Wednesday just blocks from the White House. Soldiers were gunned down at Farragut Square in Northwest D.C., less than a half mile from the White House. D.C. Metro Police confirmed the shooting, 17th and I. Suspect in custody. Didn't share how many victims were involved. The scene said to be secure now. And in fact, that is backed up by some of the pictures we're seeing from the scene. But the White House is aware and has been actively monitoring this situation. The president has been briefed, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in a statement. The last time I was in D.C., I was there when some of these troops were there, and I noticed that, they were there, but it wasn't what I would call a showy, how do I want to phrase this? There were a lot of people, they were clear you could see the troops were there. But at the end of the day, it wasn't an overwhelming presence. They were there. It was subtle. I also can tell you from talking to people who live in the D.C. area that they very much like the fact that the National Guard was called in by Trump. The people who live there, many of them, really like the idea that the city has become safer again because it had really spiraled out of control. It was really getting bad. And the president, anytime he opens up the microphone, in fact, I think he did it yesterday when he was pardoning the turkeys, he was talking about how much it has improved in the District of Columbia and how the city is now safer than it was before. And I believe that to be the case based on what I've heard from people who still live there. However, this incident has occurred this afternoon. Who knows what happened? Who knows what went down? We'll get it. But again, just to recap the very salient points and the very basics of the story that we know as of now, and again, a very fluid situation, about a half mile from the White House, 17th and I Northwest, near the Farragut West Metro Station, right there on the street was some kind of encounter between a couple of National Guardsmen and someone else, and that person, that suspect, apparently was also injured in this encounter and is now at the hospital receiving treatment. One, we don't know really the condition of the National Guard troops, except to say that one of them was receiving CPR at the scene. So that's what we know. We don't know how it all went down. Normally, what would happen in a case like this, you will hear from the police chief of Washington, D.C. in pretty short order once he gets on the ground. The basics are, but since this is a joint effort, you may well get your best information, first of all, from the Department of Homeland Security and the federal government. So we're definitely watching it. Who knows what else is going on? But that one really does not sound good. Again, the president not in town, J.D. Vance, literally in our backyard over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, feeding troops and the run-up to Thanksgiving. So there is all of that. Jay Harper will have the very latest on it coming up in just a few minutes on the newscast, so stay tuned for that. Jay's on it. We're on it. We'll keep you apprised of this breaking news situation. Speaking of Washington, D.C., yesterday, the President of the United States did this. I've been to a lot of these. The little press conference where they pardon the turkeys. Except when Donald Trump pardons the turkeys, he pardons the turkeys from this year and the turkeys from last year. Here is Donald Trump speaking from the White House yesterday during this annual event.
Terrible situation caused by a man named Sleepy Joe Biden. He used an auto pen last year for the turkey's pardon. So I have the official duty to determine, and I have determined that last year's turkey pardons are totally invalid. As are the pardons of about every other person that was pardoned other than, where's Hunter? No, Hunter's was good. That was the one pardon, Pam, that was good, right? The rest of them are all invalid. I don't know what the hell you're going to do about that, but now we're going to take a little of the joking. That is a mess. But they're hereby null and void. The turkeys known as Peach and Blossom last year have been located, and they were on their way to be processed, in other words, to be killed. But I have stopped that journey, and I am officially pardoning them, and they will not be served for Thanksgiving dinner. We saved them in the nick of time. This one has plenty of time, but they were saved in the nick of time.
Yeah, so he took his little shot at Joe Biden and said, his pardon of the turkey wasn't real because he used the auto pen. The fact of the matter is these turkeys end up, as I recall, I've done some stories on it, at a park in Virginia near the White House, not too far from downtown D.C. It's called Frying Pan Park, and they generally are retired and are there in a sort of in a petting zoo situation, so the kitties can come by and see the turkeys. That's generally is where they go in the past. They do not get eaten. When they are pardoned, they are truly pardoned. So there's that. Time for the news. We do have some breaking news, and I'm sure that Jay Harper is all over it. 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
Yes, it's 2:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll also get you a holiday forecast here momentarily. Well, as Brian has also been on top of things, 2 National Guard members shot today near the White House. They are reportedly in critical condition. That's according to law enforcement, an official there anyway, that is not authorized to discuss the matter publicly. They spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. A suspect is now in custody who was also shot, but reportedly has injuries that are not believed to be life-threatening. Emergency medical responders transported all 3 victims to a hospital, according to the public information officer for the D.C. Fire and Emergency Services. The president, Mr. Trump, he was at his West Palm Beach golf course when all of this shooting took place. We also have this from ABC's Jay O'Brien, who was at the scene.
We just watched what appeared to be one of those two wounded National Guardsmen loaded into an ambulance that just sped off with a police escort. The scene seems to be concentrated, and it's difficult to see through these vehicles, but it seems to be concentrated inside the metro station.
Again, this is a fluid and developing story, and Brian and myself will stay on it as best we can. A judge has dismissed the Georgia election interference case against the president. Here's Peter Haralambous with the latest on that case.
The decision from a Georgia judge puts to end the last pending criminal case faced by President Donald Trump. Both federal cases against him have been dismissed, and the Georgia case has now been thrown out in its entirety. He's attempting to appeal his conviction in New York for falsifying business records related to a hush money payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels.
Well, the holidays bring together friends and family who might not see each other maybe only a couple of times a year. But if those people have opposing ideologies, ABC's Jim Ryan says the Thanksgiving table, it can become an uncomfortable place.
It's likely that every family has this person.
I have some facts and I am right.
Psychologist Lee Richardson says the booze doesn't help.
Alcohol just kind of sets us free. And I can't tell you how many people afterward, they regret it.
She tries to use humor to keep the peace.
Give them drink tickets.
And if that doesn't work, she has a firmer message for her Thanksgiving guests.
If you have anything to say, take it outside.
Okay. I know when my family take it outside has a whole different meaning. That is the latest news. We've got a weather forecast for Thanksgiving on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We got all kinds of stuff happening in the nation's capital. Chad Benson is on. Chad, if you're listening, feel free to jump in anytime you have new information about what's going on in the nation's capital right now. Will you do that for me? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Because, what's happening here is you got a shooting that occurred just about a block or two from the White House, just on the other side of Farragut Square. And it is pretty interesting. The response, National Guardsmen apparently had some kind of encounter. 2 National Guardsmen have been shot. A suspect is at the hospital receiving treatment, apparently also shot. It may have happened inside the metro station, Farragut West. But I'm telling you, the downtown D.C. area right now is just crawling with red and blue lights. You got to understand, in the District of Columbia, in downtown D.C., all God's children got their own police department. I mean, everybody's got their own. Believe it or not, it has to do with separation of powers and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I mean, within the executive branch, everybody's got their own little independent police department. You got your Capitol Police, you got your Metropolitan Police. You got your military police that are there for military operations. You got the Secret Service Uniform Division, which is basically police officers who are responsible for protecting the White House grounds and also, our various diplomatic operations around town. So they are responsible for that. And then, the FBI has a police department. The Justice Department has its own police department. Small, but they're there to provide security for the people who work in those particular federal buildings. They're basically, at the end of the day, the town's crawling with police, and when something like this happens, everybody shows up. But we don't know anything more other than we have a situation involving a shooting of some National Guardsmen that were brought in by President Trump to secure the city and to make it safe. Trump is not in town. He's at Mar-a-Lago. Vice President is in our own backyard over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, dishing out turkey and dressing for the troops. And so there nobody is around. Town largely is, a lot of people are out of pocket right now because it's just, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. People are leaving town. So what happened, we don't know, but we're on it. And if you come across anything, just jump right in there, okay?
I got you, Brian.
Okay. In other news, while we have a few minutes, I want to remind you that as you are driving home, if you are driving home, that this is the last day that you can do early voting for the District 7 congressional race. And, soon, very soon, we'll stop seeing all of these commercials, and the battle between Van Epps and Afton Bain will be over. But in the meantime, I just feel like I need to send up a flare because there is some information that came out this morning that suggests that this race might be tight. Now, I think there are mitigating factors to this information, and I'll get into that. But basically, the folks at Emerson College, thehill.com, have done a snap poll on this one race here that we have going on in Tennessee for the 7th congressional, the seat previously held by Mark Green. And what's going on there? What's happening? Could be a 2-point race if the poll is correct. Now, the poll was taken over the last few days, and in the last few days, we've also had a whole bunch of stuff that's sort of come out of the woodwork that Afton Bain has said that could well be hurting her chances in this particular race. The Democrat, Afton Bain, the bane of our existence, has said, among other things, she hates Nashville.
I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville, apparently, an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
How can you be a representative of this area and get away with saying you hate what the city stands for? First of all, there's that. Then she's just weird. She's just pretty wackadoodle. She's out there. Here's a clip in which she talks about a recurring dream that she's had.
I've had is standing up in a cafeteria full of women, I don't know why I was there or whatever, and saying, I don't want children, I want power, and just screaming it at the top of my lungs.
That's very revealing. She wants power.
And for someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying. And where I am now with seeing the consequences and the ramifications of women having kids.
Well, there you have that. You go back to this part, though, about what her mother said to her.
For someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying.
How bizarre is that? Can you imagine? Think about this for a moment. You're having a conversation with your mother, and your mother says, don't make the mistake I made. Don't have any kids. Then she's basically looking you straight in the eye and saying, I regret that you're here. I mean, come on. Pretty amazing. What kind of psychological trauma is that when, your mom says to you, I wish if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have you. No telling how that messes someone up, but one way or the other, this race, look, I think it's probably not as tight as the polls suggest, but it's the only poll that I can find that's been done on this particular race, and it could be tight. And here's my concern. I'll just go ahead and lay this out here. I think this is the thing that we have to be really, really concerned about. Democrats are motivated in a huge way to vote in this particular election. And although Republicans in this district outweigh Democrats, it all comes down to motivation. How motivated are the Democrats to vote? How motivated are the Republicans? Well, let's just talk about Democrats for a moment. They're angry about everything that Trump is doing. They're not happy. They are motivated. There is an element within the Democrat Party, especially in the far left part of that just loves what Afton Bain is doing, and they're gonna go out and they're gonna support her. And if all of them show up, and not many people on the other side of the equation show up, Bain could win this thing. It could happen. Now, I think that there are some. It probably will be okay, but I'm not sure based on the data that are available. I'm not sure where this thing stands. And I can tell you this, if the Democrats are motivated, and on our side of the equation, we're not that motivated. We're pretty happy right now, maybe not paying attention to the race like we should. Oh, it'll be fine. The Republicans always win, in this particular district. Well, you know what? If all the Democrats vote and the Republicans don't show up, Bain could become the bane of our existence for some time to come. She will be a standing member of Congress. And I just don't think that this is the kind of thing that we want to have happen in our area. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, there's a part of me that says, hey, it'll give you something to talk about. But I think we would be well served to look at Matt Van Epps. Now, I did a debate among the Republican candidates. I was moderator of a debate, and afterwards, if you twisted my arm, I wasn't going to say it at the time, but I'll say it now. I thought Matt Van Epps won that debate, and I was very impressed with him. He's a solid individual. He's a man with great military experience. I forget how many tours of duty that he's done. Helicopter pilot, very solid, handled himself on the stage very well. He would be a good replacement for Mark Green, and I hope that is the outcome of this particular race. But let me say, if you're within the sound of my voice, and you are a Republican, a conservative, and you haven't voted, and you're eligible to vote for this particular candidate in this particular congressional district, the 7th, and you haven't, why not? Sadly, I'm not eligible to vote in this particular race, but a lot of people are. JustTheNews.com, both political parties ante up seeking big win in Tennessee congressional race. Voters in Tennessee's 7th congressional district are casting ballots to decide who will replace Mark Green in a rare December election marked by millions in donations from political action committees for both sides. Republican ads depict Democrat Afton Bain as a radical disaster with an agenda that Tennessee cannot afford. Bain says her campaign is about affordability, which is not the big issue. The big issue is the economy. And by the way, on the issue of the economy, the poll shows that Republicans list that as their major concern more than Democrats do. Interesting. Republicans are pretty worried they could lose this race or it gets close enough that it continues the narrative that they're on the defensive, so they're pouring resources to try to fight that perception, said Dr. John Gear, a professor of political science at Vandy. Okay. The primary election drew about 67,000 voters, 31,000 Democrats, and 36,000 Republicans. Early voting numbers from the Tennessee Secretary of State's office indicate that just over 63,000 people have cast their ballots. Early voting ends, as I mentioned, today. The district was set up after the 2020 census to favor Republicans. There had been a district in mostly Davidson County that was very blue and elected Jim Cooper countless times, and the state legislature decided to take Jim's seat away from him and create 3 Republican districts as a result, which, by the way, passed constitutional scrutiny. The most interesting story may come after the votes are counting, according to Gear. If Bain wins, it will be a mega story. But even if she loses, the election could send a message to the Republican Party. Let's say Van Epps wins by 8 points. Given that Green won by 20, they will make that will be the narrative going forward. 50 minutes past the hour. Let's call it 55 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. As you know, we've been following this story out of Washington, D.C. 2 National Guardsmen who were there to brought in by the president to help make the community safer have been shot. Another suspect is at the hospital, apparently also shot. J.D. Vance, in our own backyard, was aware of it. He's over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, speaking to the troops, and just a moment ago said,
And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those 2 National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America.
So that's J.D. Vance in our own backyard over at Fort Campbell, Kentucky this afternoon. He's talking to the troops as we speak. So he is ready for Thanksgiving. I have a feeling somebody else who's ready for Thanksgiving is the man who will take over at the top of the hour, our good friend, Matt Murphy.
Brian Wilson. How are you doing, my friend?
Are you ready?
I'm ready to go. I just got pumpkin pie and pecan pie delivered by a good friend of mine, J.K. Brister, and he also brought me a turkey, like a raw turkey. So I get to figure out what I'm going to do with an extra turkey for tomorrow. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, so now let's talk about the most important part of the meal, not the turkey, the dressing.
Yes.
Now, where are you on dressing?
Big fan. Normally we do 2 types. We do just your standard dressing and then the cornbread style dressing. There's 2 different pans there for that because there's different tastes on that. But I'm a huge fan, and it's one of my favorite memories growing up. I every time Thanksgiving rolled around, my grandmother would make up the dressing early in the morning, Brian, and then she would pull out a small little container of the raw dressing and bring it to my grandfather. Because he was the official taste tester.
The taste tester, yes. This is very important.
Oh, yeah.
The dressing taste tester.
That's
Go
right.
ahead.
And so she would deliver it to my grandfather, and every year, I can tell you it was the exact same scenario. She would say, Cecil, try this and tell me what it needs. And he would take a bite. He would put it in his mouth. He would swish it around a bit, and he said, needs more sage.
Yeah.
Every single year. And I thought it was the funniest thing when I was a kid. I was like, well, why doesn't Mom just put more sage in it before she gives it to him? Because she knows what he's going to say.
Sage is apparently, I'm the cornbread dressing musher. In other words, you put it in a big pan. Dressing is cooked outside of the bird, not in the bird.
Of course.
And so it's my job to put the cornbread, the biscuits, the croutons, and all the stuff that I put into my dressing, the eggs, and the oil, you put in some onions and some celery and some sage, and then you squish it all up. And my wife, Cabana wife, has been on me about using fresh sage from our garden.
Oh,
so
yes.
Apparently, for her, the sage is also important.
Well, the mushing is a very important part of the process. It's my understanding.
Yeah, you get your hands all mushy, and then you got to wash them off. But, I mean, it's got to be about the consistency before it goes into the oven of thick, lumpy oatmeal.
Yes, I hear you. Are you guys hanging out in, as you would say, bucolic Watertown?
Yeah, I'm going to be in bucolic Watertown, have some family and friends coming over for the big turkey dinner. We are also in the midst of Christmas decorations, so that's...
I saw that on Facebook. The first tree of the season was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there's 15 of them up now. I'm not making this up. All right, what you got coming up in the 3 o'clock hour?
I mean, obviously, we're going to continue covering this tragic story involving the 2 National Guard's members. We'll have the update for you. And early voting has finished in some areas of the 7th Congressional District. We will update on that. And Matt Van Epps will stop by via phone at 4:35 this afternoon. That's all on the way.
All right, big show, all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson in for Chad Benson. I'll be back here on Monday filling in for Chad, and I hope you'll swing by and join us then. Until then, you and your family have a great holiday weekend.